All right, let's build an AI assistant. No, really, today we're going to pull back the curtain on Snowflake Cortex agents. I'm going to show you exactly how you can create a seriously powerful AI that understands plain English and pulls answers right from your data.
So, we're going to go on a little builder's journey here. First up, we'll get our heads around what these agents actually are. Then, we'll give our agent its identity, load it up with tools, teach it how to think, and then we'll put it to work. Sound good? Let's jump in.
Okay, first things first. Before we start building, what in the world is a Snowflake agent?
You know, at the end of the day, these agents are all about solving one huge problem. How can you let your applications, your users, talk to your data using just natural language? The goal here is to let people ask questions in plain English and get answers without them ever having to even think about writing a line of SQL. That's the dream, right?
And the way Snowflake solves this is pretty brilliant. The best way to think about a Cortex agent is like an AI team manager. Someone asks the question, right? The agent, our manager, figures out what they really want. Then it looks at its team of specialized tools and says, okay, you go do this, you go do that. It coordinates everything to get the job done using your Snowflake data. It's all about that orchestration.
All right, enough theory. Let's actually start building. The very first step is to create the agent object. Think of this as the blueprint for our assistant, where we give it a basic identity.
Now, Snowflake gives you a few different ways to get this done. You can use the Snowsite UI, which is a nice, guided, visual process. Or if you're integrating this into an application, you can use the REST API. But for our purposes, we're going to stick with good old SQL commands. Why? Because the create agent command lets us see all the pieces of the puzzle laid out in one place. It's super clear.
And when you look at the command, the first part is actually kind of fun. It's the profile. This is all about giving your agent a bit of personality. You're setting its display name, maybe an avatar, a color. Basically, this is what the end user is going to see when they interact with it in an app.
Okay, now for the really critical part. This is where we give our agent its brain. See this from specification part? This is where you pick the large language model, the LLM, that's going to be the orchestrator for the whole operation. You can plug in some seriously powerful models here, like Claude from Anthropic or models from Google. This is what drives all the thinking.
So, a super smart brain is great, but it's not much use if it can't actually do anything, right? It needs hands. This next section is all about that. We're going to build out our agent's toolbox and fill it with all the skills it needs to get work done.
First up, and honestly, this might be the most powerful tool in the box, is Cortex Analyst. Just think of this as the agent's direct VIP hotline to all the structured data you have sitting in your tables and views.
And this thing is a total game changer. A user can ask something like, hey, what were our top 5 products by revenue last month? And Cortex Analyst, it just automatically figures out the right SQL query, runs it against your data, and gets the answer. It's like having a data analyst on standby 24/7.
Okay, that's great for data in neat rows and columns. But what about all the messy stuff? You know, the PDFs, the company handbooks, the support documents, all that unstructured text? Well, for that, we have our next tool, Cortex Search.
This tool basically gives your agent the ability to read and understand all your documents. So if someone asks, what's the deal with our refund policy? The agent doesn't just search for keywords. It uses Cortex Search to understand the meaning of the question and find the most relevant snippets from your policy docs to give a perfect answer.
Now, getting a table full of numbers is cool and all, but let's be honest, sometimes your eyes just glaze over. A picture really is worth 1,000 rows, and that's exactly why we have the Data to Chart tool. And here's what's so brilliant about this. The agent is smart enough to decide on its own when a chart is the best way to answer. So, a user asks to see the sales trend over the last quarter. The agent uses Cortex Analyst to get the numbers, then says, you know what? This would look way better as a chart. And it uses this tool to whip up the code for a visualization all automatically.
Okay, last but definitely not least, we have what I think is the key to unlocking some truly amazing possibilities: custom tools. This is your escape hatch. This is how you connect the agent to your world, your specific business logic, and even the internet.
With this, you can let the agent call your own stored procedures, or UDFs. And that means suddenly your agent can take action. It can send an email. It can update a customer record in your CRM. It can call out to an external API to get the latest stock price. This is what takes your agent from just a Q&A bot to a genuine automated assistant that actually does things.
So let's recap. We've got a brain and we've got a toolbox full of amazing skills. But how does the agent know when to use the hammer versus the screwdriver? How does it pick the right tool for the job?
Well, that's where we come in. We need to teach it how to think by giving it an orchestration playbook.
And there's a really important difference to get right here. You have planning instructions and response instructions. Think of it this way. Planning is about the logic. It tells the agent when to use a certain tool. For example, if you see a question about revenue, use the analyst tool. Response is all about personality. It tells the agent how to talk back to the user, like, be friendly but keep it short. So one is what to do, the other is how to say it.
And there are even more knobs you can turn to fine-tune its behavior. You can give it system instructions to set its overall personality, like, you are a helpful data assistant. You can set up a budget to keep costs in check, which is super important. And you can even feed it some sample questions to give it a head start on understanding what your users are likely to ask.
All right, our agent is built, it's got its tools, and it has its playbook. It's ready. So let's talk about the final phase. How do we get this thing out of the lab and into the real world where users can actually interact with it?
It's really a 4-step life cycle. First, you have to grant access, right? You use standard Snowflake roles to control who can use it. Next, you test in the agent playground in Snowsight. Kick the tires, make sure it works. Once you're happy, you use the REST API to plug it into your app. And a pro tip, use threads so it remembers the conversation history. But, and this is so important, it doesn't stop at launch. The final step is collecting feedback from your users to keep making it smarter and better over time.
So if there's one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. A Snowflake Cortex agent is so much more than just a model or a simple chatbot. It's a whole framework, a secure, complete framework for building AI applications that are truly data-aware, that understand your data and your business.
So we've seen how you can use this framework to build an assistant that can answer tough questions, create charts on the fly, and even take real action. Which leaves just one final question for you to think about. What business problem are you going to solve with your first agent?